discussion. It evoked lots of emotions. It was great, in a way. It gave us a picture of what is the reality outside such platforms, outside seminars, outside conferences, and outside meetings. So it gave us that picture on what is really happening on the ground. I really enjoyed your views and your opinions around social cohesion and many other discussions that we had yesterday. Before we wrap up our social cohesion session, as you can see on the screen, I would like us to recap on what we went through yesterday. I will only take 5 hands just to let us know what was your highlight from yesterday. It could be anything that we spoke about, not social cohesion only, but anything that we spoke about from the Bill of Rights, from the context of migration, the terms that we went through, and everything that we discussed yesterday. I'll take 5 hands just to recap what you took home yesterday, how you felt when you were home thinking of what we discussed here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we can start here.
Good morning. The differences between immigration, migrants, migration, etc.
Thank you. You can share?
Good morning. I found it quite interesting yesterday. On my reflection, at home, I began to think in terms of perhaps some of the things that we must need to navigate towards, I think, collectively. And perhaps really begin to look at practical solutions that we can begin to implement, which will show that at least we are doing something, we are intentional, we are actually shifting away from the nice ideas that we have to practical solutions in communities, because communities are where the sooner we begin to do that, proper tangible solutions on the ground. Examples like if it's a black academy, which we are looking at, we are beginning to do with the community. While we kill that piece of land, we are then policing at the same time. Policing, platform is being built while we are busy together. I think that's what most of our people will begin to appreciate than another speech somewhere in the community or something.
I know that you only had 4 hands. I think we discussed. Oh, okay. No, I think it happened this morning. In fact, good morning to everyone. Let me start there. Thinking about yesterday happened this morning. And something cropped up in my mind. And I thought it is around whether social cohesion is possible. It is something that can be achieved. And then I said, you know what we did yesterday, the discussion was sitting at a high level of the country as a whole. And we were very specific around economics and the shape of South Africa. Social cohesion is possible. It depends on what level we are in our minds as we discuss social cohesion. There is social cohesion in the entire country of South Africa. which is where we are saying it's going to be a very long walk to social cohesion. There's social cohesion at community level, and there's social cohesion at family level. Within those sectors or those networks, the possibilities are not the same. And the very fact that, and the people that are going to bring social cohesion bit by bit are the people that are sitting here, which are non-governmental organizations. Now, to me, it says that the country, this sector, the NGOs, need to be strengthened and taken seriously by government, because these are the people that are sitting at community level, and bit by bit, they will be bringing change. I think that is what emanated in the human mind. But you know, this is a sector that needs to be taken very seriously. And it is very good for DPP that they started at this level. Maybe DPP was saying, you know what, we are so sick and tired of these high-level meetings. Let us bring people who are dealing with reality at community level and let them start pumping that engine. If these projects that we might think are small are seen to be doing a difference, I promise you somebody is going to say, you know what, I have seen something happening in KwaMashu. I have seen something happening in Grafville, which is where I come from. Maybe what we need to do is to take those people seriously and prototype how they do it. Then at their level, they will get into the prototyping and start making let people participate economically and all. Yeah.
Yesterday was colorful. I learned a lot from yesterday. But one of my main things I'll say is what I learned to understand the difference in a lot of ways, in the way we see and view things, even the way we understand it, even up to the way the knowledge we have in certain things. And I believe that everyone knows and says what they say for a reason. No one can just wake up and talk their own thing. So, like, for example, something I don't agree on, but I never say what someone else is saying and be angry about it. Let me rather learn from what they're saying, you know? And what I think is, from the topics we've been given, you're showing a lot of, but that's good because I now can understand why so-and-so feels that way, why so-and-so says that. Doesn't mean they're wrong, just because I don't agree on that. So that's one thing that this workshop actually are there for. It's there to bring out everyone's different views and feelings, and then that's how social cohesion can get accomplished. As if we respect everybody's views. Everybody's different, we're never going to get the same. But the minute we shut down someone else's view, then we make it even harder for ourselves.
Good morning all. It's taken me quite an effort to get up and get here this morning. I reached home feeling somewhat energized to the news of a very good friend having been shot and killed at 7 a.m. in the morning on his way to work. Clearly a hit, not provoked at all. His wallet and his cell phone and his bag stolen. And that shattered my day. I've been involved in food security and delivering food parcels to families for the past 2 weeks, up to this morning. But during the last week, I was told not to deliver food parcels to a particular community. And I said, why? They said, no, they looted and burnt our shops. They got enough food there. And when we went there to stop the looting, they were shooting at us. And I said, you got your problems, I got mine. I know there are mothers and children hungry there. There's nothing on the shelf. And I must take food, because those are my friends. And when I reflected on all of this last night, I felt broken-hearted. Because we spent many years on this topic that now has a name, social cohesion. We did it. In 1995, we had the KwaMashu Community Games, where we brought every section together. And K section, you were not allowed to walk in K section. And you would be asked, you had to turn around and walk out. But for 5 years we did the KwaMashu Community Games. And the SAPS gave us a letter of commendation for the next games. But it stopped because government would not support sport in the township, and yet that was the unifying factor. We went from KwaMashu to Umlazi, we went to every township around, and we've developed solid relationships amongst young boys and girls who grew up into teenagers and are now young men and young women, working together, studying together, many of them working in the municipality. But the last 2 weeks have pushed people aside, and we've got to start from scratch. So I sit here, broken-hearted, disappointed, but I still feel the pulse of a nation that needs togetherness. And so when we look at each other, I'm asking you, let's not judge. When you look at the texture of my hair and the color of my skin and the accent of my voice, don't judge me. Don't judge whether I have the right to be classified human. Don't class me with your historic negativity. But my appeal in this forum is that we move on. We move on strong. We deserve it and our children deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a long way to go. But I'm glad that from what you are saying, there is a light, as much as it is challenging, but there is a possibility. If we can carry that with us and go and implement it with it in our minds to say it is possible, yet challenging. If you are able to recognize that there is a challenge, then you will find a way, no matter how long it takes. But I like the fact that it boils down to the fact that it has to be sorted out from the top level, then goes down up to the family setting. If the head is not in a good posture, it becomes difficult for us as community organizations to deal with such issues if there's a blockage from the people who are supposed to give us support and give us direction based on our constitution, based on our Bill of Rights. But as we are sitting here, I'm full of hope that we will together be able to reach a certain point. It might not be now, but this serves as a foundation of the future for our children. Yesterday we had a little bit of an exercise around SDGs where we prioritized together 10 SDGs, and I requested that each and every one of us, we select 5 SDGs that we feel government needs to prioritize based on what our organizations are doing. I will also take 5 hands to find out which are those 5 SDGs that you feel government needs to prioritize. as an organization. And maybe highlight why you feel those 5 are important out of 17. Can I have new hands? If you were not with us yesterday, would you please fill in the pre-assessment form? It's part of the pack. If you don't have it, please let us know. Only for those who were not here yesterday. Can I hear anything from those SDGs quickly? New hands, please. Young talk. Okay, you can share.
Our main one is, I would say, zero anger. Why I chose zero anger is because if you look at crime, people committing crime so they can provide food for their families. Yeah, that's my main zero hunger and clean water.
I think for me the 2 main important ones were quality of education, decent work and economic growth. But according to research done in 2020, it shows that the decent work and economic growth in the country, the progress in that has deteriorated, which brought me to thinking of the discussion my lovely lady had yesterday, that you find that you have educated graduates without any job opportunities in the country. And also I found that peace, justice and strong institution is important, because I think that's where we're going to get the foundation in order to ensure that the decent work and economic growth is functioning and going well.
Is there anyone else? Okay. Yes, we can continue. Can you please come and take your report?
You?
Yes. You can share.
Reduced inequalities. And if you look at the targets for this year, it's noted as 2030. By 2030, we're going to have achieved this SDG. And the reason why I chose it is because yesterday's conversation clearly gave an indication of the inequalities and how devastating they are to the community at large. And then my second one was no poverty, which is SDG 1. Again, by 2030, they plan to have alleviated poverty in and outside of the African continent. Then there was quality education, which my sisters just clearly outlined it. I'm not going to detail on it, which again is 2030. And then there was this interesting one, SDG 5, which is gender equality. Surprisingly enough, there's no target year on SDG 5, which is quite problematic, but also at the same time brings light that they don't think that we can actually get to this point at a certain time, this thing of gender equality, because as per the outlines, when they speak of gender equality, they look at women empowerment and economical emancipation of women. But then they overlook the fact that gender is not women and men. gender has LGBTI. And I think that's why right there, they also struggling to know by when will we achieve this goal of having a gender equality, a gender equal society. And my last one, which I nominated, was life and land. Again, this one did not have a certain time frame given to it in the SDG charter. For me, again, this one is a bit problematic because when they speak of life and land, they speak of restoring your indigenous plants and whatnot. And when I looked at the heading of this SDG, for me, I thought they're going to be talking about when do we get land to people, to the rightful owners. But they don't talk about that. In the whole points of life and land, they do not mention anything, or I did not see, in fact, anything that talks about how do we get land to people, when do we get land to the rightful owners. But they speak of restoring indigenous plants and forestry and all of that. For me, that was a bit challenging. Why would they prioritize that on top of giving land to people? And then we can talk about how we then restore whatever indigenous plants they want to restore, but after getting to the rightful owners.
Thank you guys. It shows that you didn't just end here. You went beyond what we went through. And I'm glad that you did listen to instructions to go and check on the time frame of each target or of each SDG. I'm glad you did that. We then had an activity which was based on group work, where we were looking at SDG 5 on how civil society can make a difference or can have a contribution towards SDG 5, looking at the context of migration. We had 4 votes yesterday, and we agreed that we will be presenting. You can just take like very few minutes in your presentation, even if it's 2 to 3 minutes. That will be enough for me. Can we have group 3 first to present for us?
With our group, we were also right there today. Are we going to get that opportunity? Or it's fine, you can just present from the example?
Yeah, you can use what you have. Group 3.
Does it have to be one person? Okay.
It's up to you. As long as you're not going to take all the time. Two and a half minutes. Oh, thanks.
Oh my God. Hello everybody. We are group 3. And the question we had yesterday is, how can civil society in general and civil society organizations in particular participate towards the realization of this SDG? So the SDG is that we were given was the gender equality. Firstly, we saw that some members in our group really didn't understand the gender equality question, so we had to outline everything on the question of gender. So we first differentiated between gender and sex. Gender being that it's no longer male and female, there's a lot. Then we also spoke about the LGBTQI plus community. We also added them on the topic of teaching human dignity, that it doesn't end as just being male and female. So there are other genders which are trans, the whole LGBTQI community. The second point we spoke about was community education. Because we all come from different environments, so our ways of understanding gender equality will be different because of our different cultures, our religions, our different eras where we grew up, our different skin color, and the way we were all raised different. So community education needs to be neutral. The way we are all taught needs to be neutral, and it needs to benefit each and every different community in the same understanding. And then we also saw that the media plays a really huge role. If the media portrays gender equality in a specific way, in a certain way that people can easily understand, then the goal for us to reach is going to be faster and easier, because everyone has media, whether you use your phone, you watch TV, so whatever media coverage you get, it will help fasten the track, because the media will have appropriate information. We also Googled the term also. We put in Google as media because we saw the term gender equality. The term under Google actually did cover the LGBTQI community, which we didn't know, or which some of us didn't know about. Service delivery. Service delivery meaning like the way women are treated in some workspaces should be different, should be the same as the way men should be the same as the other genders also. Then there was the correct way of socializing by influencers. We have a lot of influencers on social media, like artists and media representatives. So what they say, mostly the young ones listen to them, and maybe we can use them to portray certain information, because like they are the icons and the young ones listen to them and they look up to them, and create new norms. Creating new norms. If we're used to behaving in a certain way around a certain gender, you change your norms because now you have more information about them. You have a better way of dealing with certain situations when it comes to gender equality. So we create new norms, and if we, the older ones, create new norms, the young ones will then follow suit. It will be easier to champion the SGA. Also self-realization, it's also about knowing who you are. Also knowing who you are comes with information that you are raised with and how people teach you. And the lack of information actually lacks your self-realization, because if you don't have enough information, you just blab and you say things that you're not sure about. So self-realization also works with having a lot of information about gender equality. My team can add on if I leave something else.
Thank you.
Then self-realization, we talked about we start with the individual. Each individual must know himself or herself. If you don't know yourself, you end up copying it in the wrong role model. And that is why we are having influencers who do wrong things. I won't quote names just to protect myself. But we have got people who are presenters on TV, for example, and they've got programs. But what they are propagating is not what leads to human dignity. That is our...
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. So in my group, with question number 3, how does civil society in general and civil society organization in particular contribute towards the realization of this SDG? And okay, well, what we basically said was that we should educate people about gender equality. Can I take with my mouth?
Yeah.
You can also stand here. Okay.
That we should educate people about gender equality, so the LGBTQI community, and We should include the fears and the whatnots and the who. We should make people conscious about this SDG, what it is, and why is it part of the SDG. Also use methods by creating tools that the community will be able to understand. So we spoke more in terms of using languages that all mama or Bobo and Makai that they can understand. And question 2, how does migration affect women? We said that a person can blindly trust another person from a recognized company or department, and that can lead them to human trafficking and exploitation. I guess my group can add on to that. I've missed anything.
Thank you.
Anyway, so the question, I think everybody's been repeating it, but basically how we approached the whole question was intervention-based, then it is more education-based, or it is a bit of both. But then the first one we talked about was to find ways to sensitize people about migrants and their issues. So mobilize, find issues, and then sensitize the people around issues that migrant women face. And after that, we talked about having an integrated approach towards women's issues through interventions, like we have Women's Month. We always have these Women's Day functions where we usually just talk about issues that South African women face. So in those events and in those events, yes, we can find ways to integrate issues that migrant women face, and yeah, we should include issues that are, yeah, okay, I said that. The next one was that we should have interventions that teach men and women about the law around status and citizenship. This was brought up by the fact that we were talking about the fact that we find that people or migrants come into our country and they profess their love to South African women, and then they marry them, get citizenship, and then it becomes abuse and all of that. And then we realized that this might be caused by the lack of knowledge that comes with how they can acquire citizenship legally, how they can acquire status legally. So we then said we should create interventions that teach both men and women not only about the law, but about general things, because sometimes we talk as women and not talk to the men who usually give us most of those issues that we usually face. And then another thing we talked about is creating interventions where women are taught basic life skills and all of that, because we realize that some of them come into our country to seek refuge and they might not be able to do things to make them go by. So we can teach them things like cooking, baking, just general life skills so that they can move and they can stand on their own 2 feet. And then we also talked about engaging with CSOs that can provide things like shelter and security for migrant women, because usually they experience a lot of abuse, because there are more migrant men. There are more migrant men than there are women. So you get that in a place, you get 10 migrant men and there's 1 migrant woman. That woman is going to unfortunately go through a lot of abuse and all of that. So if there's centers that CSOs can provide, that women can go in and seek refuge, that would be nice. And we also talked about educating and sensitizing people on different cultures and language, because we realize that language can also be a big barrier, because in some countries, some women don't know English or our native languages. So it gets very hard to communicate with these women. So yeah, that's all.
social developments. Hey, we like watching with the youth. Can we get involved in in a holiday program? So they had some program that they wanted to teach, and it was a powerful program. I loved it. And I said, no problem, I'm going to add it in. And I was in a program from Monday to Friday. And I said, no, we're going to come on the Wednesday. We're going to send 2 of our people, come with our stationery and what. I said, no, that's perfect. But listen here, let me show you what I do, what it requires to run the program. We're working with 30 kids every day. 30 kids need to eat every day. Where do refreshments come from? I'm looking for sponsors. If you can sponsor me 2 days of refreshments, I can put you on my program. If you can't, don't waste my program time. So we call them in, but we also make them accountable. As like when GDP comes to our communities and they have programs. Just now, it's not Ox. I was talking here. Paul said to me, we must do a program in your community. I said, yeah, but hey, budget, you're wrong. He said, don't tell me about budget. If we come into a program, we come into a program. So when you invite governments into our community to anything, whether it's come speak about health, whether it's education, they've got budget for that. They must come and you must give them a list and they must buy refreshments, pay for transport, whatever it is, you must make them pay for it before they even come into your community and address people. All right, tools for management education, like for example, what will be the tools that we'll need? Do research, like today, we had a program yesterday. Most of them went home today in the evening, done research, came back and added on what we learned, which made it so much easier to run the program the next day. We're not just coming to the program today, waiting for tomorrow, coming again. Otherwise, what's the purpose of the program? Like she said yesterday, she's not here to teach us anything. She's here to work with us. So we need to go back and also do research afterwards. Church involvement. This morning, Cook said I had a small thing about that. In some communities, this will work fine. Like Umlazi, Lamontville, KwaMashu, Umbumbulu, this will work fine. Because, why I'm saying that is because I've worked in these communities and in KwaNuswa. You go into a church space, whether someone is Shembe or Catholic or Christian, they all go in one space and listen to each other. Now you get places like maybe the Bluff, your morning side, your central place where you won't get some Muslim ladies coming to listen to a Women's Day program in the church. Because you look at it as a Christian thing. So church involvement work in some places won't. We're going to focus on community halls. Sports, arts and culture. This is something I think all communities need to have. Because if you want a kid on the field is a kid out of court. And not every kid is sports, so you have to have arts and culture as well. So yeah guys, that's a wrap from our group. I don't have any of my group on the add-in. I know my group got talkers, so Ma, you're the add-in. Yeah, what? Come, Ma.
I took a lot from what you just presented. It is more valuable and we make it sound practical, which again gives hope moving forward. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up our social cohesion session, which we will take like only a few minutes so that we can be able to move on to other sections. I want us to look a little bit on some of the human rights that talks to migration issues. It is also interpreted into social cohesion. Social cohesion, as you can see from the previous slides, there are some characteristics that need to be there for you to be able to say this society is cohesive. But it all boils down into understanding each other's rights. If we don't understand the rights, then we're going to have a problem in the long run. We might understand the rights as the group that is here in this room now, but it's important for us to go back, as one of the presenters did mention, that we need to go and share information with other people from our organizations and within our communities. For us to be able to do that, we need to make sure that we do understand what is within the Constitution when it comes to human rights, and specifically the rights that includes or involve migrants as well. Section 9 is about equality, where it says everyone is equal before the law and has the right to equal protection and benefit of the law, regardless of your nationality, your locality, and your country. Everyone who is within South African country has the right to equality. Section 10, which is about human dignity. One of the presenters, one of the groups did mention that it's important to educate people on human dignity. Then for you to be able to do that, you need to quote from the Bill of Rights that it is there. It is part of the rights for everyone. It says everyone has inherent dignity and the right to have theirs respected and protected. Everyone has inherent dignity and the right to have theirs respected and protected. As civil societies, we need to encourage and to promote other people to respect other people's rights and to protect them. It's for us to facilitate that process, to make sure that it happens. It is not just in the Constitution only, but we see it and we believe in it. Section 18 is about freedom of association. Everyone has the right to freedom of association. You don't have to judge me because I associate myself with certain group of people. You don't have to judge me if I associate myself with a certain political party. Whatever association that I involve myself in, I have a right to do that. It doesn't matter what are your opinions, what are your personal views around it. You have to accept my choice of association. Then we have section 22, which is about freedom of trade, occupation, and profession. Every citizen has the right to choose their trade, occupation, or profession freely. The practice of trade, occupation, or profession may be regulated by the law. This is a bit challenging, but I hope that we will find some solutions. Yesterday, around this issue, we spoke about our educational system that forces us and our children to choose a certain type of occupation or profession, whereas we have a right to choose our own profession, our own occupation. But as much as we can do that, if our system is still as it is going to be difficult. So it's for us, again, as civil societies, to challenge the government, to change the educational system, to change some of the things that we feel they are taking us back, and we are being channeled into something that we don't want to do, but we are forced to do it. So I would like to emphasize that we go back and infuse these rights to people that we are working with. It could be our communities, it could be the migrants around us,
they need to know their rights. And the second person who is not a migrant also needs to know all the rights that migrants have within our constitution. I just wanted us to emphasize on that. These are the characteristics of social cohesion that I was talking about, that we need to make sure they are there. If you are able to identify these characteristics, then you can say confidently that this community or this society or this province or this country is cohesive. But if you don't have all of these characteristics, then it's a problem. So when we work around social cohesion, let us try and make sure that we implement these characteristics through what we have been presenting, which is awarenesses, education, through our workshops, through our seminars, through our dialogues, and all of this, and all of that. But specifically, make sure that these characteristics are there, which involves mutual respect among the members, the trust, shared values. As much as we have different cultural backgrounds, but we must try and have shared values. Social participation, happiness. Everyone should be happy within the society, just to ensure that that society is cohesive. Structural equality, which is what we emphasized on yesterday, based on different opinions, based on different views that we had, but we recognized and understood that almost everything, the source of it is based on inequality. So once we have a structured equality within our societies, through civil societies, then we can be able to achieve a cohesive society. Openness and Ubuntu as well. Openness goes together with trust. There are four components of social cohesion. I won't go through each and every one of them, but it is important for us to understand them, and also to make sure that whatever we are doing in the name of social cohesion, these components are there. They are visible through our activities, not visible through our presentations or what we are saying. We need to be able to build social relationships between or among our societies. But as we have said yesterday, it starts within the family, because even within the family there are conflicts. So from our families to the society to the external community, then it spreads to the province. If we start it from the grass level, then it's going to be easy to take it to our national government or to our provincial government to say, this is how issues around migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers in South Africa. A wide variety of views were put forward by the NGOs, with some suggesting concrete proposals for improvement of life of undocumented migrants. This is telling us that if we are sitting here like this, discussing issues of migration that we feel they are uncomfortable and difficult, at some point it has an impact if we collect all our views and opinions and put them together, which I believe DDP will do it. They will put together our views and opinions here as civil society, and then share it with our national government, share it with our provincial government. Then someday, somehow, we will see it being discussed in Parliament by the committee. Then it will be out there and being implemented by everyone. But it starts with us. As much as we believe that it's a responsibility for government to be able to implement it, it has to be us that brings those proposals in, that brings some of the issues, raise some of the issues and take them to them. So this article
this report just shows us that it's possible for it to happen from the grassroots level, from us as civil organizations. Then it is taken up and being approved as something that is possible to happen. Let us not look down upon ourselves as civil societies. Our contribution works a long way. There is nothing that happens up there in government that hasn't affected us as communities. So it starts with us and it grows up and up and up until one day you will see that what you have discussed here, what you have raised here, now it is happening. Whether you are no longer there, whether you are still there, or your children are part of it, but wherever you will be happy to see that I contributed towards what is being implemented today. As civil society organizations, we have a mandate to serve as mediators where there are conflicts. Whenever we speak about migration and migrants, definitely sure there is an element of conflict within the communities. As it was mentioned yesterday, that it is more about xenophobia. As much as xenophobia is not the only issue around migration, but it's the main concern. There are situations within our communities where we find conflict between a certain group of people, which could be the natives of that place or that area, and the migrants mediating when there is a conflict. Firstly, we need to understand the mediation itself. What is it? Mediation is a special form of social conflict solving, also decision making. This method of conflict resolution, it involves neutral party and these two parties that are in conflict, as well as yourself as a mediator, who is responsible to facilitate a dialogue that will see both parties being happy with the solution. Bearing in mind that it is not for you as a mediator to pass judgment on each of the parties that are part of the conflict, but for you is to facilitate and ensure that all the parties are happy. They might not happy with the outcome, but it helps that you are there and you are recognizing each party's challenge or problem or whatever they are complaining about. So it calls for you to be a strong person and a neutral person, to be a mediator when there is conflict. I want to challenge ourselves that as we work with our communities, let us try and find the issues, the burning issues that we have discussed yesterday around migration. As much as they are uncomfortable, they need to be tackled. As much as we want to respect migrants' rights, but at the same time, we need to understand the other side of the community. Why are they feeling the way they feel? Why are they feeling that migrants are the threats? And then on the other side, we listen to the side of the migrants, and then we come up with common solution for both parties. So it takes someone who is really strong to be a mediator. It can't be anyone. I would like to make an example with myself. When I'm sitting here listening to someone saying something, if I nod my head for that person, I have to nod for everyone else. I mustn't be seen nodding because he is talking. And when she is talking, I'm just listening and, oh, okay, thank you. So it has to be someone who is able to balance both parties. Unlike the situations that we normally see in courts, whereby when the defendant is putting their case up there, and you will see the judge just sitting there and watching. And when the lawyer this side or the advocate is there, they are putting their case, then you will see that the judge is being taken. He is like this, like he is agreeing everything. The second person can tell that this person is going with that person. So as a mediator, you have to be always in the center of everything, making sure that there is a balance, so that people can trust you next time when you are trying to solve that conflict. Furthermore, in the process of mediation, there are certain steps that needs to be followed. There are 3 steps, as you can see. It's the preparation step, which is very, very important. If you are not prepared, you will find yourself diverting from the source of the conflict. You will find yourself not knowing how to handle the conflict because you did not prepare yourself. And then after you are prepared, there is the meeting, the sitting of the meeting between yourself and these 2 parties that are in conflict and the neutral party. So it has to be at least 4 people within that meeting. At the last stage of the process is the implementation of whatever that has been discussed. Now let us look at the meeting itself, at the mediating process meeting. Firstly, for you, it is important to welcome all the participants, make them feel welcome, and make them feel that you want to listen to them, you believe in them. No matter what the situation is, even if you know who is wrong, which side is wrong, but your welcome should make everyone feel welcomed and feel accepted within the meeting. Make them comfortable. You have to be clever about it so that they will be able to freely share their concerns. Create a conducive atmosphere for everyone, as I have mentioned. Introduce yourself as well as the participants. Present the state of affairs. That is drawn from the first process of preparation. So now you are presenting the state of affairs because you prepared yourself and you are aware of what are the issues. What is the status quo right now? Present it in your meeting. Then you have to explain to everyone the mediation process. What is going to happen? What is the next step? And at the end, what is it that we are expecting to happen? Just be clear of all the process. There mustn't be any surprises throughout the meeting. State the expectations of mediation meeting. Agree on the agenda and procedure. Don't just impose it to the conflicted parties or to the participant. Agree to it with them. Explain the cause and purpose of the meeting, objectives, and expected results. Agree on the rules and norms for the meeting. Lastly, list the topics for discussion so that your meeting can be proper and can be accepted by everyone who is part of the process. Like I said, at the end, you are not the judge. It is not for you to judge. Even if you see that it is taking a certain side, but you have to balance it. Somehow, somewhere, try and get them to agree on some of the things. try to get them to accept that they are different from each other. Once they have reached that point of understanding that I am me, she is herself, I can't change that person. Once you have reached that point as a mediator of making sure that both parties accept their differences, they accept that they are different from each other, then your mediation process might be able to reach an agreement among the both parties that are in conflict. Here we are more specific on the community, which is the native and also the migrants. But this also applies on some other community issues. It's not only about the migrants, but in whatever conflict that you have within your community and people trust you to mediate, then you will be able, if you make sure you follow those processes and make sure that you prepare your meeting accordingly. So briefly, this chapter is just about the importance of cooperation of civil society organizations involved in mitigating the plight of migrants and other plights of the community in South Africa. It also highlights the civil society organizations' differences in approaches towards addressing the challenges associated with migrants. I would like us, I'm not sure what time is it, okay, but still 4:30. Do you want to have tea or we can continue? Okay. Okay, before we grab the tea, this is the exercise that we have. How many we have today that were not here from yesterday? Okay, okay, thank you. We will have new groups. Can you please help? Can you please help? We will have new groups. So this is our activity. We're gonna do it as a group, not as an individual. As we do it, firstly, let us agree on what organization are we going to call ourselves. Please do not impose your organization on others, but agree on which organization you pretend you are for the sake of this exercise. So your organization as a group has been invited to intervene through mediation to try to resolve the conflict. I will tell you where you're going to read about the conflict. So I want you to use the mediation guidelines provided to design a mediation intervention plan. On page 18, 4.2, there's an article written by Mercury. So we're going to read that article as a group, and then we design a mediation intervention plan based on it. Let me know if it is not clear. So you're going to read through the article. Once you have read the article, then you will understand what was the conflict about. Then based on what we have just shared on how to go about with mediation, I would like you to design an intervention plan. what is it that you are going to do, who are you going to invite, how are you going to go about with that mediation plan as a mediator. Once we all have the numbers are 1 up to 5, meaning we will have 5 groups. If you have number 1, it means you are in group 1. If you have number 2, you are in group 2. If you have 3, you are group 3. If you have 4, you are in group 4. If you have 5, you are in group 5. We will have group 1 here and have group 2 here. We will have group 3 there. We will have group 4 there. And then at the center we will have group 5. Thank you. If there's a group that has less members and the one with more members, I might swap you guys. So don't feel bad if I come and ask you to join another group. We can have our tea and come back and do the exercise. Okay, we are going to have group 3 first. Group 3. Let us give them a cheer. While they are presenting, I want us to take some notes of anything that we feel is going to be useful for our own organization. The name of the group, and then you continue. It won't change anything.
We'll buy us time.
To do what?
Think of a name.
So group 3.
Our group 3 our name is group 3 organization.
It's okay. It's okay.
Group 3, there is group 5, construction, right?
Yeah.
So we spoke about, we read the article and we identified the triggers of that inserted the values. So the triggers that we got were 3. We outlined each differently. The first trigger was the trading space, where we saw that, the second trigger was the political tensions that gave birth to the violence and the scarce resources that provoked intolerance. So the trading space, we saw that most people that trade around the city who are foreign nationals or who are people without South African identity do not have permits. Therefore, the trading space gets full of people that don't have permits. By the time you go get a trading permit, you come back, you don't have space. So that created the tension. The legalities, the process of getting the permits or the trading space takes a long time, so people trade legally, and you get everyone. And by jurisdictions, you find most foreign nationals in town, and the trading spaces in town. So if we all wake up in the morning and go to the trading space, you find that the people that live closest to the space are always there earlier. So that's part of the legalities, that when we wake up in the morning, people from the townships, when they get to town, it's already full. Nobody has a permit, so you can't chase anyone out. So they start scrutinizing each other by the nationality. So you find that most foreign nationals have more trading space than nationals. Then the political tensions, you want to add that? Political tensions, we saw that when there was political tensions, when the ANC-MKVA strengthened their frustrations, they pointed out that, going back to the trading space, they pointed out all the things that we saw on the first point, and they stressed that they don't get a lot of opportunities because opportunities are given to foreign nationals. We find that a lot of clubs are owned in town by foreign nationals. We find that a lot of stores in town are owned by foreign nationals, not necessarily African foreign nationals, because you also find Chinese in the malls, you find Pakistanians where you fix phones. So they find that all the space is consumed by foreign nationals. So the political tensions, when they don't find space to breathe, then it turns to violence. The scarce resources, when it comes to medical health care, you made an example of a pregnant person. You find two pregnant people, one South African, one not South African. It's a matter of who comes first, whether you're South African or not. So we feel that. Should I say we feel? Okay, we found that it also stresses tension and triggers violence. That why her? Why not me? Because I was born here. So we don't have enough resources for us as nationals. So we also accommodate foreign nationals. Also the one of tax, we found that they don't pay tax directly as other companies, because when you don't have a CIPC document, nobody can hold you accountable of all the products that you have in your shop, or all the services that you provide. So scarce resources also deals with that. So our intervention plans that we came up with is that we have to identify the key role players first all they want to add. Also, in the case of trading space, we found that even Mukusha, he was trading when he was still waiting for his documents as an asylum. He was still an asylum seeker. He was still waiting for documents that would allow him to have an asylum. But he had the audacity of going to trade. Wow. Because there are people who identified the gap between the municipality and the need of them of the foreign nationals to trade. And what they do is they get paid for it. They don't have to go out and work. There are people who allow them to trade without the permits. Even the permits of being here, let alone the permits of owning the trading space. So that is why the trading space is, in a way, a scarce resource for the traders.
And also, here on political tensions, you will see that every time when we are towards the elections, we will see politicians will see foreign nationals as an easy target in terms of addressing their frustration. And so even this year you saw, because there is a division between MKVA, but instead of addressing that issue as an organization, they decided that the other party will go and use trading space as a cover-up of what they are really fighting for.
Another scarce resource that we found is information. There's a lot that happened at Melbourne. We see the result, but we are never told what happened. So we read whatever the media is giving us, we hear whatever the media is giving us, but the political tension is causing all this havoc and all the problems that we experience economically. Check how many people don't have work today. They are going to fight for this trading space even more.
So our intervention plan was, we had 3 points. We had identified key role players, we had the media and war room engagements. So we firstly identified the points of our key role players in this city. It was the municipality, home affairs, business support, SAPS, and Metro and Metro. So we saw that the municipality is the one that gives away the permits, and the process might not be genuine. Home Affairs is the one that's supposed to be assisting the asylum seeker and fast-tracking the process of them getting or not getting the asylum. And the business support, where for you to trade, you need to be registered at business support. And the business support is supporting for you trading and you being allowed to trade. You have to be supported by the business support department. And they are the SAPS who are deployed by the business support to go and SAPS and the Metro to go and check the permits and whether they're allowed to be on the space. They are not. We also have the media that triggers also, where they distribute false information of xenophobic attacks, and then which gives birth to a lot of violence, because maybe nothing really is happening outside, but then the media plays a huge role in spreading propaganda to people. And then we suggested that we will gather all these role players in one room and have like a war room engagement session with all key role players and stakeholders, where we get to engage about how all of this that is happening is affecting us, and what are the solutions, and how do you then go forward?
Yeah, and also on the war room engagement, we will also want to have some sort of an orientation from all these hero players, just to orientate those who want to trade on what exactly do they need in order for them to trade, and also for us to be able to hold them accountable when they are not doing what they said they will do. And last year as a group, we agreed that as much as we can write this down and present it, but it's not possible in our lifetime. Thank you.
I'm going to make an example of the business support. I once saw on television where a Pakistani tuck shop was selling expired food. So if business support doesn't really go and check those type of things, people end up getting food poisoning and all of that, because nobody really checks the type of food that is being traded. Nobody checks. Unlike when you go to the English markets, you know that the food, it gets there every day, the veg and the fruits, they get delivered every morning from somewhere, I don't know where. And then, but you get to tap where they're getting the food from. The shops are full. These foreign national shops, as in like the Pakistanis, the Chinese, and the other African brothers shops, they are full of food that we don't know where they buy them from. We don't check the dates, whether can people consume the food. So maybe business support could strengthen their departments in checking those type of things.
As a group, we feel that if we could be recognized and be used for the gains of the nation and for growing the economy, then there could be something that we can do. Otherwise, we'll end up talking to ourselves and not being listened to, and no action will be taken to utilize us and our experience and knowledge. As a result, nothing will ever happen down there, because our policies are aimed at the middle class. And we don't work with the middle class, we work with the grassroots people. So, what justice exercise in our vocal cords. Thank you.
The government is excellent. We have an excellent government.
Can we have group one? Group one.
In school, the group ones were always the brilliant ones. Where the group 1, 2, and 3. So what we have here is the group 1.
It's good just saying way.
Not a long time ago.
Okay, so our understanding is that we are here to explain the mediation process. And obviously, there's a conflict. So how would we mediate between the groups that are conflicted? So we have some guidelines from the book. So for facilitators, we all know that the most important thing to do is to get the right people into the room. Because if there's a conflict and you get the wrong people into the room, then you are not achieving anything. So the name of our organization is Color Peace Organization. So we focus on social cohesion, peace, safety and security, and everything of that nature. So that's the name of the organization. So the first thing that we will do is to get the right people into the space. So in this case, obviously we are mediating between the locals and the foreign nationals. So there's a violence that has been meted against the business people and most foreigners. So we have got all the people that we thought were the right people into the space. So we have a representative from the local community. We have one from the MVA. We have someone from the SAPS. We have someone representing the Refugee Social Services, SAHRC, and then other people into the space. So if someone was facilitating from our organization, would obviously welcome these people. And the second thing obviously is to create a conducive atmosphere for them to feel at home on the space so that they are free. So for us to do that, they will introduce themselves. And who do we have here?
Well, I'll be just stating the stop.
No, where are you from? So we're just at the introduction level. Who are you representing? From there?
From the organization.
Okay. And so some of them they're going to represent different things. So for now, they're representing something else. And let me jump this gentleman because it's nicely dressed.
Hey, I'm from the local community.
So she's from the local community.
I'm from SAPS.
You see, she's this one. If she catches you at times. She's from the municipality. And somewhere from
the veterans, you see.
MKB. So obviously, these are the people that we have into the space. Then we would obviously introduce the mediator and the participants. So the participants are obviously introduced. The mediator for today is Mr. Umlazi. Mr. Umlazi is you can see the gentleman is dressed to kill. Look at him, you listen to him, thank you, sir. So then we have to know, why are we here? What are we doing here? So the secretary is going to just explain to us what brought us into the space. So Ms. Lollipop, she's going to do that for us. Why are we here now?
Well, we're here due to the violence that are happening on the CBGs between the leaders, well, foreigners, and the Karava members, that people were brutally attacked, and victims that were sent, took their stuff. As we saw, Uguti touched on the table that was petrol bombed, and allegedly the Karava denied that they were associated with the attacks, and we see that there was the service, the refugee social services also. There were more than 200 people.
Hey, guys! I was Mazuma's house. The army was not, I was Mazuma's house. Hey! I guess Sergeant?
I would like to hear what you have to say. Please take a seat. So the meeting is on now. So she has explained, obviously, in a more detailed why we are here. This time now, we know why we are here. Mr. Msizi, as the mediator, will explain the mediation process. The mediation process would be like what we are doing. People could sit on the round table and everybody is speaking, or it could be, if you have attended the DDP meetings, you could be in groups. That's a process where people deliberate and then one person. So Mr. Msizi is going to help us to understand how are we going to do this thing. Not the rules, just to explain the process.
Okay. Good evening or good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to explain the rules of engagement for today. The rules of engagement, we need to respect each other as we are in this room. We need to take turns to respect while others are speaking, not to speak over people who are speaking. Raise your hands if there is something that you want to say. Respect also the people who are in the podium so that they can be audible, so that you can hear and maybe ask questions later whilst they've finished what they've said. Thank you. Those are the rules of engagement so that we can start the whole process of moving to our places and settling down so that we can maybe start the whole process.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So now we know the rules of engagement, how this thing is going to, unfold. So at this point, we're going to state the expectations. Now, as the mediators, obviously we come into the room and we know what to expect. We know how we want to drive the meeting. But the people that came into the space, they also have expectations. So at this point, we hear from the people, the representatives, what are their expectations? Why did they come here? So we have Ms. Lollipop. Who are you representing, ma'am? The victims. She's representing the victims. What are the expectations?
The expectations of the victims that as we all work together from one stream with like peace amongst us and nobody who's better than the other, and stop of the violence that is happening on the CBD.
Thank you, ma'am. The MKV.
Yeah, we have to prove ourselves innocent and let it known that we were not there. We are Zuma's house.
So the MKV, they are here just to prove their innocence, to put it on record that the people that were beating others in town, it's not them. They were at Nkandla or somewhere else. So that's their contribution. That's why they're here. And you're representing my sister?
Local community.
What's your expectation?
So we urge our community to bring peace, unity, and also in the business and trading forums to be inclusive, that our people must be included as well in the business.
Thank you. Sister, the SAPS,
I'm representing SAPS, and our interest is the maintenance of the rule of law, and we believe that it can only be done through the whole government machinery working so that we can prevent some of these things from happening. If people are given the right permits at the right time, we would be able to prevent some of these things happening, and we'll do our best to also influence inside and outside of this meeting.
Thank you, Captain Megan. What are the expectations?
Yes, one piece, respect each other and reconciliation. Because at the end of the day, we are all human beings. We must love each other.
So after we do that, then obviously someone is writing, and then this forms part of the agenda. These are some of the things that we'll be talking about. Then explain the cause and purpose of the meeting, the objectives. So someone is going to do that. Agree on the rules and norms for the meeting. So obviously from the representatives, they also have an idea of how things, so we can also talk about that, but at the end of the day, we have to come up with one thing and then list the topics for discussion. Like obviously when we walked into the space, we did that, showed us this is what we're going to be discussing, and so someone has to do that, and then the mediator would obviously take the podium and then begin to deliberate. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
The name of the group is ATDS, NPC, so that means it's a non-profit company. So we also here. We are four. One of our members is still outside. I think he's on the phone, he's coming now, he's going to join us now. So, as the organization, then we were also asked to try our best and mediate in trying to find a solution in this conflict that recently happened. So this is how, what we're going to do is we're just going to break it down. We're not going to go into details. We can see some of the groups, they've already taken too much time. Obviously, they were too many. So it's fine. The most important thing as the organization that you thought we must do is to use the journalism strategy where when they are going to write a story, where they use what we call the 5 W's and H. You found out what happened, where, by whom, to who, how. Is it 4 W's? I think it's 4, I don't know, I don't remember. But yeah, there's strategy, or there's another member, Adam. So using 4 W's and H, that assists us in knowing exactly where the conflict started and who provoked who, on what basis, who, you understand? So in doing that, it also took us to our next step. Remember, this is our planning. It's 4 of us, members of this group, we're still planning how are we going to intervene or how are we going to mediate. So this is part of our planning. And then after that, we decide who are we going to invite, who can assist in this matter, and then who can be, what do you call it, stakeholder, yes. Besides these parties, these both parties who are in conflict. So we thought, no, obviously what we call the Human Rights Office, which is obviously we're going to be talking to the Durban-based office, the Home Affairs representative, the SAPS representative, and also most importantly, the Diaconia, where most of the time our friendly brothers and sisters from other countries, when they come, they are accommodated. These people, they are very much important to be also presented because they are the ones who have more insight, who are going to tell us per day how many people come there, how they take care of them, what they do and whatever. And then also the eThekwini municipality, and not just the eThekwini municipality, but the business unit, I believe, is the most important unit that we must invite because they also have to come in to explain how do they distribute these trading spaces. We have seen them advertising in their metro newspapers, but then now we also do need to know if we find someone who's not a South African trading either with papers or without, what's the process? And lastly and most importantly, the community media. This is very important because You won't find any ETV and SABC, which is so-called mainstream media, covering these so-called engagements, unfortunately. So bring in the community media to come and cover this kind of dialogue, you understand? So now, in the meeting, then we put them together, these stakeholders, and you make sure you also invite the responsible parties, and then they all have to be representative equally. I'll make an example. If you say we want 50 people in the room, make sure that we have 25 people that's representing those who are in their role in making sure that all these communities live together and work together in peace. And we notice it's not going to be a meeting. It's very, very important that it mustn't be a meeting, because if you talk about a meeting, it's something that someone is going to come here up front and say whatever they want to say, and the platform, it must be a dialogue. Make sure each and everyone in the room and they get an opportunity to talk, and you have to make it clear as soon as that meeting starts that this is a dialogue. Everyone is here you will be given an opportunity to talk, and also everyone is comfortable to ask any question. I will leave it to my colleagues if there's anything they want to add. Yeah, is there anything that you can add?
Yeah, we also talked about the transference of skills, because we've noted people from these foreign countries have got lots of skills. If you look at their dressmakings, they make nice dresses. Saloons, I don't want to say no. And also the other guy is doing rice stands. He's going to teach them how to make rice stands so they can be able to stand on their own.
Yeah. No, I think it's very important what my colleague is saying there, because those are the kind of things that we need to talk about, especially when it comes to solutions now. How do we work together and go forward? And most importantly, before we end, there must be what we call the, after the meeting, we go back as the team now. We go back, we sit and look at the outcomes and everything, and then how do we go forward? Because it won't assist anyone to just have this dialogue, hear what other people are going to have to say, and then after that you just leave all these people like that. You have to go back, you sit down, the outcomes, who can we bring back now? What is those, are we going to bring back, coming back within the table to find a solution, so that we can be able to find a way forward. If it means we have to call another dialogue, we do that up until we found a solution and we live all together in harmony. Amen.
On the 8th of March 2020, there was an outbreak where we saw foreign traders being attacked, or brutally attacked for that matter, by members or people who purported themselves as members of the MKMVA, which is the Military Umkhonto or Military Veterans Association. During that process, we saw, and it is said, let me just put it like that, it is said that these members, men and women, came into the streets and they warned these foreign traders to say, if we find you in this spot again trading, we will attack you and we will take whatever you guys have. And when they came back, they found that these members are still there and trading, and they attacked them, they beated them, they burned their stores. Now, with this kind of violence, it called for some immediate initiative to take place, or intervention to take place. And I shall take you through to the room in which the mediation process is taking place, where we have the concerned individuals, which in this case is the MKMVA, Mr. Mr. Zibusele from KZN, who's the MKMVA leader, and the foreign trader, or a person representing the foreign traders, and also the mediation group. And that being said, we start off by creating a conducive environment to ensure that, number one, everyone in the space feels included. As you can see, for the sake of the presentation, we've created a semicircle, but it's in a mediation process would ordinarily have a fully closed circle, so that everyone feels involved and part of the process. As you can see, all of them are seated down, level seated, so that no one feels on top of the other person, or no one feels overwhelmed by another person. So with that being said, I shall take you through to the mediation room where the mediation is taking place. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ntokozo from the organization called Elevate Africa. Our organization is based to promote social cohesion through skills development and skills transfer. Here in this mediation today, I would like everybody to feel comfortable when speaking, ensure that we listen to each other and respect each other and not interrupt each other. With that being said, I would like each of the organizations to introduce themselves.
And before let's say
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dessim Kinyusra from Elevate Africa. I'm a General Secretary.
I'm Eastern Young, Elevate Africa, part of the mediation team.
Morning, everyone. My name is Ismail Kamucha from Somalia. I'm a foreign business owner. That was okay.
We are very happy here as Elevate Africa to have wonderful people in our midst, MKMVA, interests of our country at heart, and our visitors to our country doing some wonderful business economic opportunities here. We are very interested to be talking to you today.
Okay. In terms of the mediation process, what we would like to know is what would you guys like as an outcome for this mediation? This question is directed to my fellow member here and Mr. of the MKMVA.
to repatch what has happened.
For us, we hope to get a good environment for us to be able to trade and run our business without any fear of attacks in any given time.
And as, ladies and gentlemen, you can see, at this point in time, the participants have been made to feel comfortable in the room. The participants now know who's who in the room. The participants have expressed themselves as to what is their expectation instead of the mediator telling them what should be the expectation. So after this process, the participants were then taken through the process of telling their side of the story. What do they think happened, or what do they saw happen, as a means of them getting an opportunity to vent in this process before we took the process to the next stage, which our mediators will then take it through, which then inquires.
Thank you for your participation here, and we are concerned that there has been damage, and there's reputational damage to organizations, there's infrastructure damage and economic damage, but we're talking, and that is very encouraging. But I'd like to ask now, after all that we've heard, how do we restore what has been damaged? I think we're going to allow MKMVA to tell us, give us some ideas, how do we restore?
Peace and stability. Uyibusa together, uthi sabula zashiza. And
You could tell us your idea.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's very hard to operate a business where you are afraid all the time that something is going to happen. What we are not asking for is reparations or to be paid. That would be nice if that can happen. All we are asking for is a conducive environment, a safer environment to be able to work. And at some point, that will make life easier for us to really know that perhaps we can coexist, perhaps we can even find ways to build relationships and learn together and benefit together in whatever we do. So those are some of the things that we are expecting. Thank you.
Now this is wonderful, and we do know MKMVA and their patriotism to the country. They're well connected, and the SABS, the Human Research Council, and all of those business support units, MKMVA, will you be able to come to the party with restoration to support our brothers and the economic development process?
We are prepared to work by all means together to make sure that a consensus is reached.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's very good, but I must say, I didn't say it in my introduction, some of my friends are not even here because they were afraid to be here. But it's very encouraging to hear what's coming out of this meeting, of which I appreciate. Thank you.
Okay, as Elevate Africa, what we would like to know with all the points that you guys have brought to the table, when can we then meet again to ensure that the mediation process was a success, the relationship building has been restored, to see the progress that you guys are working together to proceed in building the relationship and ensuring that what has been done will not repeat itself?
I think just give us 7 days. 7 days. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For us, I think 14 days will work for us because I need to go and perhaps invite the other brothers who were also affected in the problem. So maybe they can also come meet, but we so appreciate if that can be done within 14 days. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you saw, that throughout the process, the mediators kept involving the affected individuals. The mediators did not take over the process, but they became the guidelines through the process. They allowed the affected persons to be the one coming up with the solutions and not the mediators coming up with the solutions. The mediators knew what could have been the problem, but they had to get it from the affected person's mouths to know exactly what is the problem. And because they knew what is the solution, the mediators had to get the solutions from the affected persons. And as you can see, that it is the affected person who came up with the follow-up meeting date or a follow-up meeting period because they feel comfortable with that process. Now, with that being said, that was our plan, or our design plan for the mediation process to restore the relationship between the foreign traders and the MKMVA, and to also find restoration between them and find the culprits who are masking themselves as the MKMVA. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been our skit to showcase what a mediation process looks like according to our perception. And I'm Salile Hadebe, playing the role of the narrator of the skit. Over and out. Thank you.
Organization, which is basically Siyanakekela, Siyaphucula, Siyanthanda. which is basically an organization that will be assisting through the conflict that was discussed in the case study that I think we've all read and understand by now. Through discussion, we realized that before coming up, well, from the understanding that we have to the question, before coming up with the mediation intervention plan, we will need a short-term response in firstly trying to assist the people that are affected. So we first look at our SDGs. So we identified 2 SDGs that we'd like to deal with, that being good health and well-being, and number 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions, which is basically the 2 SDGs that are apparent in the whole scenario. So what we discussed was that as a short-term response, we would include CSOs that would try and find shelter for the people, because people that have businesses usually live within those businesses. So we wanted to first, before we even try and assist them through mediation, maybe first try to assist them with shelter, primary care, and well-being. So in that, we'll be dealing with the first SDG, being good health and well-being. Because when we went through our SDGs, we did realize that most of them haven't been implemented as such. So we realized that it's the job of the CSOs to try and start implementing some of those SDGs before we can get to the top. And then the short-term ones would be done across the week. That first week where we will try and go into these communities, hone in on them, find the people that are affected, and then we try to assist them. So the second one will then be the mediation meeting. We use the mediation process in that we started with preparation, then the mediation meeting, and then the implementation. So in preparation, we would obviously meet as an organization, and then we would start talking about our action points as to what are we going to deal with within that mediation meeting. We realized that in that mediation meeting, we would not only try to mediate them, but we'd also try to sensitize the people that attend that meeting. So before we even get there, we'll have to obviously jot down the guests that we'd like to invite. So that would be the MKMDA, the refugees, the SAHRC, the RSS, and other relevant stakeholders and organizations that we will invite in order to reach a mediation or medium point and also sensitize. And then in that mediation, we would approach it in the sense that we would conduct surveys, we would conduct, it would be surveys and it would be just questions to pose to the floor where we would try to get a general understanding of how the people perceived the whole conflict. So before we even go through any mediation, it's important to understand how the MKMVA sees it and how the RSS sees it so that we know where to even start. And then in the preparation, we'll try and include some of the migration issues. We'll create information brochures, like I said, create surveys, and also record the people to obviously start a database, because as an organization, we all know that you need funding and you get funding through M&E. So that's what we want to do. And then we'll also raise some of the economic and social economic issues and social status issues that people who are migrants and refugees encounter through that mediation. So all of this is still in the preparation phase. We're still discussing it as an organization. And then within the mediation process, we will then obviously create a safe environment where people can speak, maybe include some safety enforcement stakeholders that can make sure that the place is safe and the place is clean and the place is fine. And then the people would speak, and then we would try and obviously find a medium point within the people speaking and the people that are affected. And then through those, we will use those relationships created and some of our government resources that we already have to try and then make long-term goals and long-term interventions through that mediation point. Some of those long-term implementation points or intervention plans that we talked about, the first one was to link the refugees to appropriate stakeholders. So because these people were business owners, we'd obviously link them to CEDA, link them to the economic development sector of the municipality, link them with CSOs that will assist them maybe if they want to take the matter to court, CSOs like SAHRC, Lawyers for Human Rights, and Pro Bono. And also, as an overall thing that we can do, we can also try and just monitor the people throughout the time span that we give ourselves. So, yeah.
We're busy working on the task at hand. In the interest of time, I won't go into details on each of the presentation, but you did well. I can see the future. I can see where we are heading, picking from the things that you have presented. We had 5 groups presenting. Out of 5 groups, 2 groups didn't get the memo correct. But I appreciate the effort, and it gave us a picture of what are they capable of doing when they are going out there to implement what we have learned. Then we have 3 groups that stick to the memo, that followed the instructions as per the task at hand. The task was to design a mediation intervention plan, not the actual meeting. So group 2, group 3, group 5, thank you for sticking. Group 1 and group 4, as much as you just jumped into the meeting, but what you demonstrated within the meeting took the right direction of what we want to see when we are out there implementing our mediation processes. But the task was the plan itself, which is more important than anything else. Thank you so much.
We start the lollipop.
Yeah, that's a Okay, isikhathi u-1 manje, ilunch yethu bekuthiwe izoba ngo-1, which is now. Ngicela nakhona senze kubo 45 minutes so that we can come back and finish up the remaining chapters. They are also practical. We will discuss each and every process. They are more into capacitating you when you go back on how you go about in terms of done and how to do it. Also the issue of advocacy. We will also look at how COVID-19 has affected migrants and what is it that we can do as CSOs to assist them. Then we will wrap up our day. I would like to request that let us not leave after lunch. We need to come back because our certificates are ready. But if you have a pressing issue that needs you to leave after lunch, please report to myself or Lily or Tando or Tawanda from CDP so that you can get your certificate. But I will appreciate if you all come back
so that we can grab as much as we can from what is left on our training money. Thank you.